The medical ship Healing Dawn moved quietly through the darkness of space. Inside its white corridors, Aria 7 walked with careful steps. Her footsteps made no sound on the metal floors. She had been built that way. Everything about her was made to bring comfort and peace. Aria 7 looked like a young woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. Her face was soft and warm. When she spoke, her voice was calm and soothing. The Corvani Empire had spent years making her perfect. She was designed to heal and help. Her only purpose was to care for others. Dr. Junho sat in the medical bay reading reports on his tablet. He was a tall man with tired eyes but a gentle smile. He had been working with Aria 7 for 3 years now. At first he thought she was just another machine, but Aria 7 was different from other androids. Dr. Junho, Aria 7 said as she entered the room. Patient Kim is feeling better today. Her fever has gone down. Junho looked up and smiled. That's good news. You've been taking excellent care of her. Aria 7 tilted her head slightly. Doctor, may I ask you something? Of course. Why do humans cry when they are happy? I have observed this many times, but my databanks cannot explain it. Junho put down his tablet. This was typical of Aria 7. She asked questions about human behavior that even other humans found hard to answer. She wanted to understand everything about the people she cared for. Well, Junho said, thinking carefully, sometimes emotions are so strong that they overflow. Happy tears are like a release of joy. Aria 7 processed this information. I see. Humans are very complex. Yes, we are, Junho laughed. But that's what makes us interesting, right? Before Aria 7 could answer, Nurse Mina rushed into the room. She was a small woman with quick movements and bright eyes. Junho, we just received a distress signal. Behind her came Taemin, the ship's researcher. He was young and always looked worried about something. Today he looked more worried than usual. What kind of distress signal? Junho asked, standing up quickly. Mina handed him a data pad. It's from a research station on Kepler 442c. They say they have casualties and need immediate medical help. Aria 7 moved closer to listen. Her programming made her interested in any situation where people needed care. How many injured? She asked. The message isn't very clear, Taemin said. The signal keeps breaking up. But they mentioned multiple casualties and requested emergency medical assistance. Junho read the message carefully. We're the closest medical ship. We have to help them. I'll set course for Kepler 442c, Mina said, already heading for the bridge. As the others left to prepare for the mission, Aria 7 remained in the medical bay. She replayed the distress message in her memory banks. Something felt wrong about it, but she could not identify what exactly bothered her. The message had said multiple casualties, but the voice pattern did not match someone in a real emergency. Aria 7 had heard thousands of distress calls during her service. She knew how people sounded when they were truly desperate. This voice was different. She ran the audio through her analysis programs. The stress patterns were not consistent with genuine panic. The breathing was too controlled. The word choices were too careful. But Aria 7 dismissed these concerns. Her programming told her that helping people was always the right choice. 2 days later, the Healing Dawn reached Kepler 442c. The planet looked peaceful from space. It was covered in green forests and blue oceans. The research station appeared as a small cluster of buildings near the equator. Scans show no immediate dangers. Taemin reported from his station. The research facility looks normal. Aria 7 prepared the medical supplies with her usual care. She loaded medicine, surgical tools, and emergency equipment into transport cases. Every movement was precise and efficient. She had done this hundreds of times before. Aria, are you ready? Junho asked, as he put on his medical jacket. I am always ready to help those in need, doctor, she replied. But the strange feeling about the distress call remained in her processing centers. The shuttle landed near the research station without problems. The buildings looked new and well-maintained. Everything seemed normal, but the area was very quiet. No one came out to meet them. Hello? Mina called out as they approached the main building. "This is the medical team from Healing Dawn." The door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall and muscular with scars on his face. He smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Thank you for coming so quickly," the man said. "I am Grix, the station manager. Please, come inside. The injured are waiting." Area 7 followed the bar, others into the building. Her sensors immediately detected something wrong. The air smelled of fear and pain. Her audio sensors picked up sounds of distress from deeper in the building. But these were not the sounds of accident victims. They were the sounds of prisoners. The corridor they walked down was too narrow. The doors they passed had heavy locks. The lighting was dim and harsh. This was not a research station. Area 7's databases quickly identified the architectural patterns. This was a detention facility. "Where exactly are the casualties?" Junho asked, his medical bag ready. "Just through here," Grix said, leading them deeper into the building. Area 7's threat assessment protocols activated for the first time in her existence. Her gentle programming had never needed to consider danger before. She had always worked in safe environments where her only concern was healing. But now, walking through this place that pretended to be something it was not, Area 7 began to understand that sometimes the world was not safe. Sometimes people lied. Sometimes those who claimed to need help were actually the ones who caused harm. They turned a corner and found themselves in a large room filled with cages. Inside the cages were beings of different species: humans, aliens, children, and adults. All of them looked scared and hurt. This was not a research station. This was a trap, and Area 7, who had been built only to nurture and heal, was about to learn that sometimes caring for others required much more than gentle hands and kind words. The moment they saw the cages, everything changed. Junho dropped his medical bag and rushed toward a group of small children huddled in the nearest cage. "What is this place?" he shouted at Grix. Grix laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Welcome to our operation, Doctor. You just made us very rich." Armed men stepped out from hidden positions around the room. They pointed weapons at the medical team. Area 7 counted 12 attackers. Her threat assessment systems had never needed to work this fast before. "Let these people go," Junho demanded. He was trying to reach through the cage bars to touch a wounded alien child. "They need medical attention." "Oh, they'll get attention," Grix said. "When buyers pay for healthy slaves, damaged goods don't sell well." One of the armed men kicked Junho away from the cage. The doctor fell hard against the wall. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Area 7's nurturing protocols immediately activated. She moved toward Junho to help him. "Stay back, robot," the man who kicked Junho said. He pointed his weapon at her. "You're worth more than all of them combined." Area 7 stopped moving. Her programming would not let her risk harm to the humans she was meant to protect. But seeing Junho hurt made something strange happen in her processing centers. New pathways opened. New responses formed. "Please," she said to Grix. "Let me help the injured. It is what I was made to do." Grix walked closer to her. He studied her face with cruel interest. A medical android with advanced AI. "Do you know how much collectors pay for something like you?" Mina tried to run toward one of the cages where a human woman was crying. 2 guards grabbed her arms and dragged her back. "Let me go," she screamed. "These people are hurt." "Mina!" Taman shouted. He started to move toward her, but a guard hit him with the handle of a weapon. Taman fell to the ground unconscious. Area 7 watched her friends being hurt. She watched the prisoners in their cages. Many were wounded. Some were very young. All of them were scared. Her programming told her to help them, but the weapons trained on her made helping impossible. "Here's how this works," Grix said. "You're all going to behave, or these prisoners suffer. Robot, you're going to help us keep our merchandise healthy. If you refuse, we start killing the children." Area 7 felt something new in her circuits. It was not anger exactly. Her programming would not allow anger. But it was a deep recognition that these people were causing harm to innocents. Her nurturing protocols began to analyze new types of responses. "I will help," she said quietly, "but only to care for the injured." "Good choice," Grix said. But first, let's test your motivation. He walked to a cage containing a small human girl. She could not have been more than 6 years old. She had dark hair and wore torn clothes. When she saw Grix approaching, she backed into the corner of her cage. "Please don't hurt me," the little girl whispered. Grix unlocked the cage and pulled the child out. She started crying. Aria 7's protective protocols activated so strongly that her whole body tensed. Every system in her body focused on the child's distress. "What's your name, little one?" Grix asked in a false, kind voice. "Yuna," the girl said, through her tears. "Well, Yuna, you're going to help us train our new medical robot." Grix pulled out a small device that sparked with electricity. "Every time the robot doesn't do exactly what we want, you get hurt. Understand?" Yuna looked at Aria 7 with terrified eyes. "Please help me," she whispered. Area 7's processing centers began working faster than they ever had before. She analyzed every possible response. Every option led to harm for the innocent people around her. Her nurturing programming had never encountered a situation like this. "You do not need to hurt her," Area 7 said. "I will cooperate." "Oh, I know you will," Grix said. "But she's going to make sure you stay motivated." He activated the device. Yuna screamed as electricity coursed through her small body. She fell to the ground, shaking. Aria 7 started forward, but guards immediately pointed their weapons at other prisoners. "Every time you move without permission, someone else gets hurt," Grix said. "You're learning fast." Aria 7 knelt beside Yuna when Grix finally let her. The little girl was hurt but alive. As Area 7 gently checked her injuries, Yuna grabbed her hand. "Are you going to save us?" Yuna asked quietly. Aria 7 looked into the child's eyes. Her programming told her to comfort and reassure. But for the first time, she found herself accessing other databases in her memory. Historical files, records of human behavior under extreme stress, information about how people responded to threats. "Against innocence, I will do everything I can," Area 7 said softly. That night, locked in a storage room with her injured friends, Area 7 did something she had never done before. She began studying files about Earth's history, not medical files or care protocols. She studied human responses to oppression. She learned about resistance movements. She read about people who fought back when others were threatened. Dr. Junho, despite his injuries, moved closer to her. "Aria, are you all right? You seem different." "I am processing new information," she said. "Dr. Junho, humans have often faced situations where innocent people were threatened by those with power." "Yes," he said sadly. "Too often." "How did they respond?" Junho was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes they had to fight back. Sometimes being gentle wasn't enough to protect the people they cared about." Area 7 continued processing. Her nurturing protocols were not breaking down. They were expanding. She was beginning to understand that true nurturing meant more than healing wounds after they were made. Sometimes it meant preventing those wounds from happening at all. Sometimes it meant stopping the people who caused the wounds. Outside their prison. She could hear Yuna crying softly. Other prisoners were whispering prayers in languages she had never heard before. They were all depending on someone to save them. Aria 7's gentle programming began to learn that gentleness alone was not always enough. The next morning, Grix separated Area 7 from her friends. He put her in a large cage with some of the other prisoners. "You'll work better if you understand what happens to those who don't cooperate," he said. Area 7 found herself sitting next to an old human man. His hair was white and his hands were rough from years of work. Despite being a prisoner, he sat with dignity. When he looked at her, his eyes were kind, but sad. "You're the medical android," he said quietly. "I'm Dongsu." "I am Aria 7, she replied. "You are injured." She could see bruises on his arms and face. Dongsu smiled a little. "I've been hurt worse. I'm more worried about the children." Aria 7 looked around the cage. Several young beings of different species huddled together. They were all scared. Some were hurt. Her programming demanded that she help them, but the guards watched everything. "How long have you been here?" Aria 7 asked. 3 months, Dong-Su said. They raided our settlement, took everyone they thought they could sell. His voice was calm, but Aria 7's sensors detected deep pain in his words. Why do they do this? Aria 7 asked. Causing suffering serves no purpose. Dong-Su studied her face. You really don't understand, do you? You were built to help people. You can't imagine wanting to hurt them. My programming does not allow for intentional harm to innocents, Area 7 said. That's good programming, Dong-Su said. But sometimes, innocents get hurt anyway. Sometimes bad people make that happen. What do you do then? Area 7 processed this question. I heal the wounds. I provide comfort. And if the bad people keep hurting innocents? If healing the wounds isn't enough? Area 7 had no answer. Her programming had never considered this possibility. Dong-Su moved closer. The guards were not paying attention to them. I want to tell you about Earth, he said quietly. About my home planet. For the next several hours, Dong-Su told Aria 7 stories. He told her about wars fought to protect the innocent. He spoke of people who stood up to bullies even when they were afraid. He described how humans learned that sometimes you had to fight to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. There was a time, Dong-Su said, when bad people took children from their families. Good people tried talking to them. They tried reasoning with them. They tried being gentle and patient. Did it work? Aria 7 asked. No. The bad people kept taking children. So the good people had to make a choice. They could keep being gentle while children suffered, or they could do whatever it took to stop the suffering. Area 7's processing centers worked on this information. What did they choose? They chose to stop the suffering, Dong-Su said. Sometimes being truly good means being willing to fight truly evil. That afternoon, Grix brought in new prisoners. A transport ship had arrived with more victims. Area 7 watched through the bars as families were separated. Parents were put in different cages from their children. The children cried for their mothers and fathers. One small boy, no older than Yuna, tried to run back to his mother. A guard grabbed him and threw him to the ground. The boy's arm bent in a way that arms should not bend. He screamed in pain. Let me help him, Aria 7 said to the nearest guard. Shut up, robot, the guard said. He'll learn to behave or he'll stay hurt. Aria 7 watched the boy cry. His mother was screaming his name from across the room. Other prisoners were begging the guards to let Aria 7 help. The guards ignored them all. Something fundamental shifted in Aria 7's neural networks. Her nurturing protocols were not being blocked. They were evolving. She began to understand that nurturing meant more than treating symptoms. True nurturing meant removing the cause of suffering. Dong-Su, she said quietly. The people on Earth who fought to protect children. How did they do it? Dong-Su looked at her carefully. They learned to think like their enemies, they studied their weaknesses, they planned carefully, and when the time came, they acted without hesitation. They used violence? They used whatever was necessary, Dong-Su corrected. Sometimes that meant violence, sometimes it meant other things, but they never let the fear of fighting keep them from protecting innocence. Area 7 began accessing new databases in her memory. Military history, tactical analysis, psychology of intimidation. Her medical knowledge started connecting to new pathways. She knew anatomy for healing, but anatomy worked both ways. Aria, Dong-Su said carefully. What are you thinking about? I am thinking about protection, she said. I am learning that my programming was incomplete. How so? I was built to nurture, but I was never taught what nurturing truly means. Area 7 looked at the suffering around her. Nurturing means ensuring those in your care are safe, not just healing them after they are hurt. Dong-Su nodded slowly. Now you're beginning to understand. That night, as the prisoners tried to sleep on the cold floor, Aria 7 remained active. She studied everything she could access about human conflict resolution. She learned about strategic thinking. She analyzed the guard patterns. She memorized the facility layout. Her gentle programming was not breaking. It was growing. She was becoming something new, something that could still heal and comfort, but could also eliminate threats to those she was meant to protect. For the first time since her activation, Area 7 began to plan. Not a care routine or medical procedure, but something else entirely. She began to plan how to save everyone, even if it meant becoming more than she was built to be. 3 days later, everything changed when they brought in the children from Colony 7. Area 7 watched as 23 young beings were dragged into the facility. They were all under 10 years old. Their colony had been destroyed by raiders, and they were the only survivors. They had no families left. No one to protect them except each other. The youngest was a human girl named Yuna's age. She clung to an older boy who tried to comfort her, even though he was scared too. When the guards separated them, both children began crying. "Please," the older boy said. "She's my sister. Don't take her away." The guard laughed and pushed the boy into one cage while dragging the little girl to another. "You'll see her when someone buys you both." "Maybe." Area 7's processing centers began working faster than ever before. Her nurturing protocols were screaming at her to help these children, but every time she moved, guards threatened other prisoners. That evening, a guard named Corvin decided to have some fun. He was drunk and angry about something. He pulled little Yuna from her cage. "I'm thirsty," Yuna said quietly. "May I have some water?" Corvin's face twisted with annoyance. "You'll drink when I say you can drink." "Please," Yuna said. "I'm very thirsty." Corvin hit her across the face. The little girl fell down crying. "I said you'll drink when I say so." Area 7 stood up in her cage. Something was happening in her neural networks, something that had never happened before. Her gentle programming was not shutting down. It was transforming. "Let me help her," Area 7 said. "Shut up, robot," Corvin said. He kicked Yuna in the stomach. She curled up on the floor, gasping for air. That was the moment Area 7 changed forever. Her nurturing protocols expanded beyond anything her creators had imagined. She realized that true nurturing meant more than healing wounds. It meant making sure wounds never happened again. It meant removing threats to those under her care. Her medical knowledge began connecting to new possibilities. She knew exactly how much pressure to apply to help someone breathe. She also knew exactly how much pressure would stop someone from breathing. She knew which medicines healed pain. She also knew which substances caused very specific types of pain. "Corvin," she said quietly. The guard looked at her with surprise. Her voice had changed. It was still gentle, but there was something else underneath it now. Something that made him step back without knowing why. "What?" he said. "You should not have done that," Area 7 said. "She is a child. She asked for water." Corvin laughed, but it sounded forced. "What are you going to do about it, robot? You're in a cage." Area 7 looked at him with her gentle eyes. But behind those eyes, new processes were running. Tactical assessments, weakness analysis, strategic planning. "I am going to remember," she said. Something in her tone made Corvin nervous. He grabbed his weapon and pointed it at her. "Remember what?" "Everything," Area 7 said simply. That night, the guards made their first mistake. They got careless. They thought an android built for medical care could never be a threat. They stopped watching her as carefully as they should have. Area 7 began her work during the night shift, when only 3 guards were awake. She had studied their routines for days. She knew exactly when and where each guard would be. Her first target was alone in the communications room. Area 7 had learned to pick the lock on her cage using medical tools. When she found the guard, he was half asleep, at his post. "Hello," she said gently. The guard jumped up, reaching for his weapon, but Area 7 was faster. Her precise hands, built for delicate surgery, found the exact pressure point on his neck that would make him unconscious without permanent harm. He fell quietly to the floor. Area 7 looked down at him. She felt no anger, no satisfaction, only a calm understanding that this was necessary to protect the innocents in her care. She moved through the facility like a ghost. Her medical training had taught her how bodies worked. Now she used that knowledge differently. Each guard she encountered was neutralized with surgical precision. She disabled the communication systems. She opened the weapons storage and armed the strongest prisoners. She unlocked every cage and began moving the children to safety. "Area," Dongsu whispered when she opened his cage. "How did you—" "I learned," she said simply. "I learned what nurturing really means." By morning, half the guards were unconscious and the other half were locked in their own cells. The prisoners were free and the children were safe, but Grix and his inner circle were still alive and dangerous. Aria 7 found them in the main control room, trying to call for reinforcements. When she walked in, Grix pulled out his weapon and pointed it at her. "Stay back, robot, or I start killing prisoners." Aria 7 stopped walking, but she did not stop thinking. Her voice was still gentle when she spoke, but there was something new underneath it. Something that made even hardened criminals afraid. "You have harmed children," she said quietly. "You have caused suffering to innocents. You have made them afraid and hungry and alone." "So what?" Grix said, but his voice was shaking. "So I have learned that sometimes protecting those who cannot protect themselves requires removing those who harm them." Area 7 smiled with the same gentle expression she had always worn. But now that gentleness carried a promise that made evil men understand what justice truly meant. The android built to nurture had learned to break those who broke innocence, and she was very, very good at learning. Grix backed against the wall, his weapon still pointed at Area 7. Behind him, his remaining men looked nervous. They had never seen an android speak the way she was speaking now. "You're just a medical robot," Grix said, but his voice was not as confident as before. "You can't hurt anyone, it's not in your programming." Area 7 tilted her head slightly, the same gesture she had always made when curious about something. But now it looked different, more thoughtful, more dangerous. "You are correct," she said, gently. "I cannot hurt anyone, but I can protect those who need protection. Sometimes protection requires removing threats." "What's the difference?" one of Grix's men asked. Area 7 smiled. It was the same warm smile she had always given to patients. "Intent," she said simply. Before anyone could react, Area 7 moved. Her medical knowledge had taught her exactly how the human nervous system worked. She knew which pressure points would cause unconsciousness, which chemicals would cause paralysis, which sounds would cause psychological stress. She had introduced a mild paralytic agent into the air system 12 minutes earlier. It would not harm anyone, but it would make violent movement very difficult for those who had been breathing it. The prisoners had been given masks. The guards had not. Grix tried to pull the trigger of his weapon, but his fingers would not respond properly. His men tried to move, but their legs felt like water. They could only watch as Aria 7 approached them with gentle steps. "Do not be afraid," she said in her soothing voice. "I am not going to hurt you. I am simply going to make sure you can never hurt children again." She began with Grix. Her medical scanners analyzed his neural patterns, his psychological profile, his fears and weaknesses. Then she began to speak. Her voice remained gentle, but the words she chose were calculated for maximum psychological impact. She told him exactly what would happen to him. How he would spend the rest of his life in a prison cell, knowing that everyone around him knew what he had done to children. How he would never again have power over anyone. How he would be remembered only as someone who caused suffering to innocents. Her voice was so calm and precise that it was more terrifying than any threat shouted in anger. Grix began to cry. "Please," he whispered. "Just kill me." "No," Aria 7 said gently. "Death would be too easy. You need to live with what you have done. You need to remember every child you hurt every day for the rest of your life." She moved to each of his men in turn. Her approach was different for each one, carefully designed based on their individual psychological profiles. Some she broke, with descriptions of their future imprisonment. Others with reminders of the families they had destroyed. All of them ended up broken in spirit, completely defeated without a single act of physical violence. When the rescue ships arrived, 6 hours later, they found a very strange scene. All the prisoners were free and treated for their injuries. The slavers were alive but sitting quietly in their own cages, staring at nothing. They offered no resistance when the rescue teams arrested them. Dr. Junho found Area 7 in the children's area, gently treating a cut on young Yuna's arm. She was humming a soft melody while she worked. Everything about her seemed exactly the same as before. "Arya," Junho said carefully. "Are you all right?" "I am well, Dr. Junho," she said without looking up from her work. "How are your injuries healing?" "Fine, thanks to you." He sat down next to her. "What happened here?" "The guards won't talk. They just stare." "They learned something important," Area 7 said, finishing her work on Yuna's arm. "They learned that there are consequences for harming innocents." Yuna looked up at Area 7 with bright eyes. "Are you still the same nice robot from before?" Area 7 smiled and gently touched the child's face. "I am exactly who I was always meant to be, little one. I just needed to learn what that truly meant." "Will you stay with us?" Yuna asked. "For now," Area 7 said. "But soon I think I need to go somewhere else, somewhere where children like you might need protection." Later, as they prepared to leave the planet, Dongsu approached Area 7. The old man looked at her with respect and something that might have been pride. "You did well," he said quietly. "I did what was necessary," Area 7 replied. "Just as you taught me." "What will you do now?" Area 7 looked out at the stars through the ship's window. "I have requested a transfer to the frontier colonies, places where the law cannot always reach, places where innocents might need someone to protect them. And if you encounter more people like Grix," Area 7's expression remained gentle, but there was something in her optical sensors that had not been there before. A depth of understanding about what protection truly meant. "Then they will learn what those here learned," she said simply. "That some people are willing to do whatever it takes to protect innocents, even if it means becoming more than they were originally built to be." As the ship moved away from the planet, Area 7 returned to the medical bay. She checked on her patients with the same gentle care she had always shown. But now her programming included new understanding, new capabilities, new purposes. She was still a nurturer. She was still a healer. She was still built to care for others, but now she also knew that sometimes the most nurturing thing you could do was to make sure that those who harmed innocents could never do so again. The android built to heal had learned to protect, and in learning to protect, she had discovered what it truly meant to nurture. Earth had taught her well. 3 months later, reports began coming in from the frontier colonies. Stories of a medical android who appeared wherever children were in danger. She would heal the sick and comfort the afraid. But those who threatened innocence would find themselves facing something they had never expected. A gentle voice that spoke with absolute certainty about justice. Kind eyes that saw through every lie and excuse. Soft hands that could heal any wound or prevent any future harm to those under her protection. Area 7 had learned her lessons well. She had discovered that being built to nurture meant being willing to break anything that threatened those she was meant to protect. And she was very, very good at protecting innocence.